I am a 19-year-old trans man. I'm 5 feet 1 of average weight, from a family of mostly law enforcement which, coupled with my anxiety disorder, often has me looking over my shoulder in the simplest of situations. I live in the sort of small town where everyone knows everything about everyone, and it is thought to be a safe area for the most part. I've never trusted that, however, since a highway runs directly through it, and I've heard too many stories about the kinds of creeps that the open road can bring around. However, despite my misgivings about the situation, I insist on walking with my partner on his way home from my house when he leaves. Now, this particular story takes place last night at about 10 p.m. Not too late, I know, but late enough for most of my town to be pitch black, including the streets that led from my home to his. Before leaving, I place my favorite pocket knife. I'm kind of a collector and I'd just rather be safe than sorry when we leave this late, into my jacket pocket and lock up the house, leaving the living room and porch lights on to give the illusion that someone else was home. Our walk there went without incident, and considering it's summer, it was a rather pleasant night to be outside. We were having a good conversation with one another, and being out there with him, I could almost forget how uncomfortable it made me be walking at this time of night. That is, until we passed the cemetery. Our route always took us past one of the graveyards in town, and every time I pass it, I try to be as quiet as possible, not only because my best friend from high school is resting there, but because at night, it's a huge block of darkness that no light can seem to break through, thanks to all the large trees. Something about passing it always makes me wary. It isn't long after we pass that we reach my partner's house safely. We exchange goodnights and I love yous, and he tells me to be careful on my way home. I say that I will be and I go on my way. Now that I'm alone, the silence around me makes my skin crawl and does nothing for my nerves. I take deep breaths and place one headphone in, turning on my music to try and calm myself down. I freeze the moment I turn the corner onto the street with the cemetery because there, standing right in the middle of the sidewalk, is a man I've never seen before. He's at least a foot taller than me, and I can't see his face very well in the dark, but I get this crawling feeling in my stomach like he's looking my direction. I wait where I am, hoping that he'll go on his way first so that I don't have to move around him. I don't want to go near him or in front of him, in case I inadvertently lead him to my home. But the man doesn't move, and I have no other choice. I step into the street and take as wide an arc around him as I can before continuing to walk. Faster than before, but not yet running. My heart is already hammering, and my hand is in my pocket, squeezed tight around the hilt of my knife. I know it's unreasonable to be so scared without the person having actually done anything, but I can't help but think the worst. It's better to be prepared than to be ambushed because you trusted strangers standing on street corners in the middle of the night. I see the first crosswalk come into view a few minutes later. After that, there's a stoplight and another crosswalk that takes you across the highway. Then it's up a hill, a few turns through the residential streets, and I'm home. No big deal. But that's when I realized that the man had started walking in the same direction as me. He wasn't far behind, so he must have started walking only moments after I had passed him. My heart plummeted and, without waiting to reach the crosswalk, I jogged quickly across the street. I thought I heard him yell something after me, but I wasn't listening. I checked quickly for approaching cars as I came to the highway, and when I saw there were none, I went for it without bothering to wait for the light, and I only looked back once I was at the top of the hill. Sure enough, there he was, crossing the highway in the same direction I had gone. I turned the corner quickly, hoping he hadn't seen which direction I had gone, and I ran the rest of the way home, where I promptly locked my doors, checked all the windows, and then locked my bedroom door as well just for some added security. Looking back on this, I realize it could have been nothing, but I couldn't help the way that this guy put me on edge. I mean, why was he standing in the dark in front of a graveyard? Why did he wait for me to pass him to start walking? I hope I never find out, to be honest. I often like to go out running in summer or whenever the weather is nice. This happened a week before I was supposed to start high school. I thought about going running that day, but I got that idea in the morning, and I run in the evening while the sun is still up. But it isn't as hot as in the day, and there isn't a chance for it to get hotter if I don't manage to get back in time like in the morning. Well, of course, I forget my promise to myself and only remember it at around 9 p.m. Now it's the end of the summer, so the sun is already setting sooner than I'm used to, but I go. I already have been putting off running, so I don't want to put it off again. I should probably mention that I am a girl. And even though a lot of girls I know change the side of the road they walk on when they see even distinctly drunk-looking guys walking, I was always the one calling them pussies and was ready to take on the first rogue who tried to get to me. I also live in a less populated area out of the town where almost everyone knows everyone, so I was feeling extra sure of my safety. What a naive fool, I know. So I go out, I start my run, and it's fine. It's getting a bit dark, but I can still see the running track, so all is good. I start to feel a bit off when I see a pair walking in front of me. When I get closer, they turn out to be just teen guys, and I run past them with no problem. When I finally reach the usual point in my run where I turn around, a cemetery, ultra creepy, but it has benches and it's a small graveyard, so I never feel weird about taking a break there, it has already gotten pretty dark. I drink some water from my bottle and just stand under a tree next to the gate in the territory of the cemetery, but don't sit down where I usually do because the bench is next to a fence, and the darkness has finally made me a little wary about being alone and someone jumping on me. It's pretty funny that that's what scared me the most at the time. When I catch my breath, I stay for a few more minutes just listening to the wind. I see a bike drive past the cemetery, taking the route I will take while running back. I leave my resting place, and it has gotten really dark. Dark enough that I could barely see 2 meters in front of me. I start slowly running back. After 15 meters or so, I start hearing voices. A couple more, and I can clearly hear someone talking. My thoughts immediately jump to a conclusion that there are at least 2 people in front of me if I'm hearing a conversation. Now I slow down even more until I get close enough to actually hear what's being said. Keep in mind it's completely dark, and this road doesn't have streetlights, so I can't see anything. I get close enough to finally make out the words, and my heart sinks at what I hear. I can't recall the exact words that were said, but the general idea. The male voice said, "I see this girl. I could just pull her into the bushes." There were tall bushes lining one side of the running track. As I've said at first, my heart stops, but immediately after I go into fight or flight mode. I can hear my heart beating in my ears and I'm full of adrenaline, the bad kind. I know I can't just stop or he will know I heard what he said. So I continue to walk, but thank God that the running track is separated from the road by a small grass field. So I go to the side of the road, making some distance between us. I keep looking at him. Keep in mind I still don't even know how many people are there, but I see a square of light, presumably a phone, and then I hear him jump on his bicycle and drive off. It turned out he was talking on the phone, but just because he was alone didn't mean I was less scared of him. I walk on the side of the road for a good few minutes until I'm sure he would be far away from me, and once I get back on the running track, I sprint home like crazy. All the way back, I was shaking with fear and looking at the bushes and the cars that passed me with delirium, squishing my water bottle in my hand, ready to smack anyone who came close to me. When I finally reached the first road lights, I felt like I escaped death. A few years ago, I don't remember how many now, let's just say I was in my early 20s, I was out camping with some friends in the Charles C. Deem Wilderness in the Hoosier National Forest. The main road in the wilderness is named Tower Ridge Road, after the tall Hickory Ridge fire tower that is smack dab in the middle of the woods. When you pull off of the road into the parking area for the tower, there is an old disused gravel road which leads to a few trails out in the wilderness. At the very end of the road is a very old cemetery. A lot of the headstones are simple sandstone markers indicating that someone is buried there. If there was any information on them to begin with, it had long since eroded away. The area that made up the wilderness was created when the government repossessed farmers' land during the Great Depression. Before that, the area was farmed for quite a while, so naturally, the poor subsistence farming people that lived and farmed the area needed a place to bury their loved ones. Most of the graves in the cemetery were very old, and all of their immediate relatives had long since passed away themselves. However, there were a few granite headstones from as early as the mid-1990s, and a few from wealthier former residents who were able to afford professionally carved headstones dating from the early 20th century. I was camping in a convenient area with close proximity to our vehicle and the gravel road to make our camping trip all the more comfortable. The only downside to having all of these conveniences was that we had to be near the main trail, so we had a fair amount of foot traffic going by our tents. My friends and myself were friendly to everybody passing by, exchanging pleasantries and wishing people a good hike. Quite a while after dark had settled in, when we had our fire roaring and we were all in good spirits after having had some drinks and smoking some pot, a person of average build and weight passed our camp wearing a headlamp with the creepy red filter on so we couldn't see his face, and he was carrying a spade with a D-grip. We said hello like we had to everybody that passed our camp, but this person was different. This person just passed by without breaking his stride or saying a word to us. He just acted like we weren't even there. We all thought this was weird, but nobody said anything to each other, and we soon forgot about our encounter with the weird shovel-wielding man. The next morning I awoke to a beautiful blue sky. The birds were singing, and it was shaping up to be a truly beautiful day. I woke up before my compatriots, which wasn't unusual for me. I'm always the first one up in the morning on camping trips. I usually get coffee ready and wake everyone up with the sounds and smells of coffee being made. On this particular trip, being a bunch of 20-year-olds, we remembered the booze and weed, but of course forgot the coffee. After standing around for a while and not wanting to wake my friends up, I decided to take the mile or so hike down the disused gravel road and check out the cemetery. I left without telling anyone where I was going. After all, it was a beautiful day, not too hot, not too cold, and the sun was shining. What could possibly go wrong, right? I had soon made the mile or so trek down the gravel road, enjoying the sights and smells of the forest, and I had quickly found the cemetery. It was surrounded by a waist-high chain-link fence with a gate in it. I opened the gate and stepped inside the cemetery and began looking at the graves. Near the entrance to the cemetery, there were a few professionally carved limestone headstones. As I approached the closest one, to my horror, I saw that the grave had been disturbed. There was an approximately 5-foot hole dug near the headstone, with the same de-gripped shovel in the bottom of the hole, which was located in the approximate location where the person would have been buried. The hole even had 3 terrace-like steps dug into it so the grave robber could easily get out of their own hole when they were done doing their dastardly deed. I inspected the headstone as best as I could under the circumstances. It was limestone and very old, so a lot of the information had long since eroded away. However, I'm fairly certain that the grave belonged to what I think is an infant girl named Elizabeth who died shortly after her birth in the early 20th century. After my brief inspection, the notion dawned on me that there was only one way in and out of the cemetery, and I hadn't passed anyone on my way in. I wasn't trying to be stealthy in my approach, and I soon realized that the person who dug the hole probably heard me coming and was probably still in the immediate area. All of a sudden, I had the feeling that I was being watched from somewhere in the surrounding forest, and needless to say, I felt very unnerved by the whole situation. I looked around, but I saw nothing but the endless forest on either side of me. I decided to beat a hasty retreat from the area. After I got out of eyeshot of the cemetery, I walked as fast as I could back to the relative safety of our camp. A little while after I got back to camp, my friends started waking up, and naturally, I relayed what had just happened to them. They were just as freaked out by the whole situation as I was. After some discussion, we decided to leave. After we had packed up camp and were about to leave the parking area, we noticed that there was a sign on the gate of the gravel road going to the cemetery indicating a number for whoever managed the cemetery. Of course, we called the number, and I relayed my story to whoever was on the other end. A few hours after this, I received a call from the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office asking for my story. They said they would send an officer to check out the cemetery. Needless to say, I never heard back from them, but I sure as hell hope that I never run into the D-handled shovel-wielding weirdo who would dig up an infant's grave in the middle of the night.